G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room, and this is episode 8, Flat Classrooms. Well, you may be wondering what this term flat classrooms is all about and how it affects you. It basically comes from a book that's pretty popular at the moment called The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. And the basic premise of the book is that we've had a lot of change in the last few years, both technologically and socially, but mainly technologically, that has brought our world closer together. And there's a number of reasons for it that I won't go into right yet, but we will talk about it in the podcast. And that has impacts for our classrooms. It has impacts on the way that we do collaborative work and that we're allowing our students to interact and communicate and collaborate with other students in other parts of the world. And whereas that was maybe once a very difficult task to do, the way that technology has changed in the last 5 or 6 years, certainly the last 10 years, the boundaries towards being able to collaborate across those boundaries have basically vanished. And so that's what flat classrooms are all about. In this episode, I get to speak to two amazing teachers, Janet Barnstable, who's actually a good friend of mine, lives and works in Chicago, or just outside Chicago, and Sharon Peters, a lady who I've never met in person, but have spoken to many times via Skype and email. Both of these two women have some amazing stories to tell on the way they deal with international collaborative projects, getting their students to work with other students in other parts of the world, across time zones, across boundaries, and the educational outcomes that they're able to get from the kids. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. I think it's a good one. Well, thank you both for joining me. This is a real pleasure.
Definitely a pleasure on my part too.
And online we have Janet Barnstable in Chicago. Hi, Janet.
Hello, Chris. And actually just a little west of Chicago.
A little west of Chicago, yep. And Sharon Peters over in Montreal, Quebec.
Yes, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I might just start by asking you two to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, your particular interest in education, and then I will maybe introduce what we're talking about. So, Janet, perhaps you first.
Alrighty. I'm a teacher at Percy Julian Middle School in Oak Park. I'm also the district's web producer. What I do with kids is basically get them to do all the work, because who wants to have to sit there and think up things for them to do, right? No, actually, I have for at least 10 years now been working with kids who are working with other kids, with the idea that the more they broaden their ideas and the more they reach out to other people, the more they learn about themselves and their own environment and their own styles of learning, and the more they actually learn. I think the biggest compliment I had from a student was one 4 years ago being interviewed by a group through a teleconference from Carolina, and the child said, "Well, Miss Barnstable doesn't teach us anything. She just makes us learn."
Oh, that's
a nice
high compliment.
Yes, yeah. I thought it was the best compliment I've ever had. And it's my motto at this point. Don't teach them anything, just make them learn.
I like that. That's very good. And at the risk of embarrassing Janet, and because I know she's very humble, you've received a lot of kudos for what you do with kids too, through various award programs and nominations for various things. So there you go, I've embarrassed you.
That's all right. We're not a video. You can't see me turn red.
Sharon.
Well, I feel so honored to be working with Janet this year and to rub shoulders with her, or actually maybe stand on her shoulders, because what she's not saying is what kind of internet pioneer she is. And you can't be doing online collaboration with schools for very long without having heard of her. So she is
That's very true.
very popular lady out there and has a presence on the web that is very powerful, and she's a trailblazer. She's a real trailblazer for internet projects, and it's been such a treat working with her. I've learned so much already. I am a teacher of English here in Montreal. Kind of unusual, I know, because it's thought to be a French province, but I am an Anglo. I come from away, come from other parts of Canada, and we've lived here for about 12 years, and we do love Montreal. I teach English at a place called Lower Canada College, and I teach middle and senior school English there. Just finished my Master's of Educational Technology, and in the course of taking my coursework over a period of 2 or 3 years, it really became clear to me I had two interests. One was learning theory, and I love finding out the best way people learn. I love exploring that and some of the learning theories that are out there. And I love this online collaboration stuff. So I was really fortunate enough to pair the two for my thesis work and study high school students as they participated in an online learning environment, and they examined their own learning styles, and hopefully the program I created had them thinking about their self-monitoring skills, and which is falls under a little bit of metacognition, and again, just bringing it back to what's the best way that they can learn, so they're cognizant of that. And so this is my 4th year of working with international online projects, and I'm just still, I feel like a newbie and a novice compared to Janet. So as I said, I'm learning from her, and really enjoy doing it. I think it adds such an important and critical element to our kids, to our students' learning experiences, that we can afford them in the course of their schooling with us. It's so important. It's so important, and yet on the one hand, I'm really gratified to see it catching on. I'm bumping into more and more teachers who are exploring this, and on the other hand, I'd like to see it catch on so much more. And
right.
I'm in awe of what Janet was able to do. She was able to persuade her school system that they needed a whole course dedicated to global virtual learning, and that is phenomenal. I think every school should have that. So she should tell us a little bit about that.
So you just get old enough, and they say, "Oh well, let's humor the old lady and give her what she wants." And then it does. As Chris mentioned, we have won a few awards, and that does help. It gives you credibility with the school system. And they say, well, maybe this is something good, and, well, we can't find anybody else who really wants to do this, but since this person does, let's let them do it and see what happens. And I feel very fortunate that this district has actually done that. And
how many years is that now? I remember when that happened, and that was maybe 5-6 years ago? Oh,
it was a couple years before we won the Hong Kong trip, so I would say it's probably about 98.
Wow, that's trailblazing stuff to have done so much that you can convince them to run a course dedicated to online collaborative learning. 8 years ago.
Right, and it also helps that I am an elective teacher, which means that although I teach a lot of reading skills, a lot of thinking skills, which is, to me, what education's all about. You have to be able to read, and you have to be able to think, and you have to be able to at least minimally compute to be able to survive well in the world.
Is that what education's about?
Oh, gosh.
I always thought it was remembering all 50 states.
And the capitals, right?
And the capitals.
At any rate, I probably, even though I am not considered a regular teacher, I'm an elective teacher, I really feel that what I do and the way I do it is the way education really should be taught, so that children, and Chris, I know you believe a lot of this also, and I'm sure Sharon does too, because I've seen from what she's doing with the kids. Kids have to be taught how to learn, not be taught facts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And I think what you're talking about is with the new seemingly the new catchword is multiple literacies, and developing digital literacy skills and multiple literacies for the 21st century. That seems to be something that's becoming more recognized, I guess, and
Right.
I like to promote that idea because we want them to think beyond just the written text,
Right.
but be looking at graphics and sound and putting everything together in a way that is elegant and communicates effectively, whether it's a poster board or whether it's a web page or whether it's a wiki, a video.
And I agree with you, Sharon, that there are more people beginning to look at this and beginning to say, well, maybe this has some possibilities. But I also feel rather bad that there aren't many more people
Yes.
that are looking at education this way, for the simple fact that other countries are beginning
Yes.
to look at education this way. And Chris, Australia is one of the forerunners, I think, in this method of teaching and way of thinking. So much of what I refer to is Australian studies or things that are on the web that Australian schools have put there, the ways of thinking, the problem-based learning. There's so much
that
there.
That comes from that old Australian sort of attitude of, you can fix it with fence wire and a bit of glue, and you can fix anything if you're ingenious enough. So I guess there's a little bit of that sort of spirit that comes into education.
Right.
I guess what got me thinking about getting the three of us together and having a chat about this is I've just been reading Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, and I just think it sums up really nicely a lot of the convergences that have happened in the last, probably the last 10 years, that really have, as he says, this convergence of ideas and technologies that have occurred around the start of the 21st century have totally changed the landscape. It's changed the business landscape. It's changed the way people work, talk, communicate, think, and inevitably it will change the way schools work, I think.
Right.
It's been my favorite book of the last 2 years. I can't tell you how many people I have given a copy of it to.
It's an amazing book.
It's an amazing book, and I think Friedman does an excellent job of pulling the threads together, as you say, of these convergences and explaining it in a way that not only makes sense, but really, at least for me and my North American eyes, takes into account what's happening globally in terms of international politics and relations. And that the second half of the book to me was much more engaging and interesting. The first half was very good too. It talked about the digital flatteners, and I recognized most of them. But as I said, he pulled those threads together in the second half of the book and really explored those areas that, like I say, these North American eyes don't have a chance to really maybe be as aware of.
Right. Unfortunately for us, other people are emulating us and we don't notice.
Yes.
We're the ones who are ending up behind.
Yes.
Because we think we're the center of the world. We're wrong, but in having such thinking, we're ending up behind. We're keeping the status quo in our educational systems. We're still basing our educational system on 50 states and can I memorize my facts, and we're not moving globally as quickly as we really should.
Yeah.
That fact was really summarized quite well in that recent edition of Time magazine, the cover article, How to Build a Student for the 21st Century. And I was so pleased to see that because what it did was bring this issue right to the mainstream. I mean, you can't get much more mainstream than front page of Time magazine. And it quoted Friedman. It talked about the need to teach skills that will build global awareness and literacy and collaboration, and I was very encouraged by that, and I'm really hoping. I put a copy in each one of my headmaster's boxes. Not subtle. I didn't feel the need to put a Post-it note or anything on it. I just thought I'd share it with them. So,
right.
At any rate,
having read that book, and to me, if I can sum it up in 2 sentences for anyone who hasn't read it, it's basically this notion that. A whole bunch of technologies have come together at around the start of the 21st century. We, as many people, invested a whole lot of money pumping huge amounts of fibre into the ground to connect us all up, and then of course things went belly up a little bit, and so we've got this massive infrastructure in place. And what happened, and almost by accident, was that it brought the world closer together. It put everybody on everybody else's doorstep, pretty much. And we're seeing that sort of acted out in the way that outsourcing's happening in India, and the way that China's taking off, and the way that the world is basically shrinking. The very fact that I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and one in Chicago, one in Toronto, one in Montreal, and I have to just add that this is the first podcast I've recorded so far where we've all been pretty much in the same time zone. So, I think that speaks volumes about the nature of the way the world has become flat. So what I thought we'd try and do in light of all that is to perhaps, what the book didn't really touch on, or at least if it has, I haven't got to that part yet, is how all of this stuff affects education, and what can we as educators do to make our classrooms flatter.
I want my students to have an experience of meeting someone somewhere else in the world and having to collaborate and share with them, and communicate with them, to share ideas with. And I teach 4 classes, and this year I've got an international project for each one of my 4 classes, which is a little bit more work for the typical teacher. That's pretty
impressive, yeah.
But I've got some good projects going, and we're using some really neat tools in the classroom. That the kids are on board with it. They are excited. They're engaged. I'm using Skype in the classroom for one of them, so that we have a very controlled situation set up where we have one Skype call in, and the students act as ambassadors for the class and communicate back and forth with students in another part of the world. I think that's my newest sort of endeavor, and that's been a lot of fun. I use Moodle to as a walled garden for 2 groups of my students to meet students in Israel and Russia as they work on a collaborative literature project. And my 4th project is with Janet and her class in Illinois, and another class in Arizona. And although the team is supposed to be made up of 3 different countries, it just didn't work out for our team this year. And I'm not too dismayed by that, because I have such excellent partners. And we are thinking of ways that we can make it more international in scope, our overall web design project, because I think the kids enjoy having that a little bit more, and also it's possibly something the judges will be looking for too. So that's been a very fun project too. And I have to say, one of the limitations, if one wants to get involved in a global project, or one of the limitations that one must always consider carefully, is how does it fit into your curriculum. And because I teach a core subject, English, and because it's pretty tightly packed already with what expectations my school has for me to teach, it takes a fair bit of I guess, negotiation and work to work in a project that will meet those learning goals and the curricular demands, I guess I could say, that's placed upon me. And things are maybe a little different here in Quebec than they are in the States, where we already have a bilingual program in place, and by the time you have the subjects that are needed to be taught in both French and English, the required subjects, it doesn't not leave a whole lot of time for electives. So I do not have the license, perhaps, that Janet has, or some of the American schools have, in being able to offer something that is my own, where I would like to take it maybe so much.
Yeah. So. No, it's Australia's, we have the same limitations.
Right. Well, that's why I say I'm so lucky to be an elective teacher. Because our core teachers are bound by all those restrictions.
Yes.
And there's, there are things I keep sending people. There's this thing with the Falcons and their reappearance in downtown high-rise areas. Wherever the buildings are tall enough, the Falcons have come back. And in fact, we do have some in Chicago. And there was one a couple weeks ago on the 4th floor of Percy Julian's building, which is not that high, but it's one of the highest buildings in Oak Park. Wow. And it didn't stay there. I mean, it was just there one morning, and we have never seen it again. I tried to get the science teachers to participate in the project about the Falcons that's in the entire United States, and can't get anybody to bite. It doesn't fit into their curriculum. And it's like, to me, like, wait a minute, you all study life science. You all study ecology. Why do you mean it doesn't fit? And I think that's part of the problem, is they feel they have to stay with the science book. And yes, it's more work. Yeah. Because you have to, instead of doing the ecology of the life cycle of the earthworm. Maybe you have to do the life cycle of the falcon and endangered species that way with one that's right here where you can study it. And it's more work because it isn't in the textbook. The work isn't done. The teacher's going to have to do some of the work. The kids are going to have to do some of the work.
That's right.
I don't know whether. I was talking to a guy recently in Hong Kong, and he was talking about the same thing. He's in Hong Kong. He gets these big clouds of smoke coming down from China, from the industrial zones, and he wants to teach the kids about burning brown coal and about dealing with energy efficiencies and why does every apartment in Hong Kong have a dryer when it doesn't need to, and et cetera, et cetera. But they're tied into what the syllabus says they need to learn about, which by and large is of little relevance to those particular kids.
Well,
right.
And I think that's what part of the problem is, that our curriculum lacks relevancy and currency, and that's a lot of times engagement for our students. We're trying to impose upon them maybe a 50-year-old or more curriculum, and without some thought to being more progressive and flattening that classroom, and it's very difficult to try and get other teachers on board with a global perspective.
And you can, excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say you can make substitutions if you're learning, as I say, for example, ecology or learning about species disappearing. You can make the substitution, but you have to do a lot more work as a teacher, and the kids have to do a lot more work as students. But I think in the end, they've learned a lot more. It's not just I've gone to the book and I've memorized this because this is what the teacher said is going to be on the test. Yeah. Or this is what the state is going to test me on because they said that we should study this thing. If they'd understood about ecology, if they understood about disappearing species, it wouldn't matter what species the test was talking about. They would understand it and be able to make the connection.
Yeah. Well, can I just read you something? I and Janet, you probably won't recognise this instantly, but you were part of this. Janet and I worked together on the virtual classroom project, a few years ago now, and we actually ended up in Hong Kong together with a group of kids to collect their award.
Oh, how wonderful.
And I gathered the Japanese, the Australian and the US kids downstairs in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel in Hong Kong and said, you guys are being presented with an award, you need to write a little acceptance speech. So write me a little speech and talk about what it is that this collaborative learning project, what you've gotten out of it, what have you learned? And so I've actually got it here. I don't know whether you remember this, Janet. But
I do.
Let me just read it to you. Because this is a group of kids talking about what they got out of a collaborative project. And it says this. This project has made an enormous impact on our lives. It has taught us how to be part of a team and how to take our own initiative to achieve goals. It gave us a worldwide perspective and helped us appreciate our own cultures as well. Having a multicultural team brought us the challenges of language barriers, time zones, different cultural perspectives, but it has also given us a broader understanding, greater diversity of opinions, and it has changed many of our stereotypes. Our countries have gone from being just names on a map to becoming real places with history, heritage and customs. Plus, we've become friends with people from all over the world. As we worked together, we learned how to accept constructive criticism and to politely communicate our views when our views about other people's ideas, even when we didn't agree with them. We improved our time management skills and increased our computer abilities, both of which will help us in future careers. It took the individual talents of everyone in the team, the leaders, the designers, the programmers, the organisers, the musicians, the artists, the writers, the motivators, the stressed and the sane, all woven together to bring our visions to reality. Now, you can throw any piece of educational gobbledygook at me you like, but to me, if we can do that with our classrooms and with our kids, then I think we've done the best possible job as educators we could do.
Yes.
I so agree, yes.
Was that written by a student?
That was written by a group of students.
Right.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
As I say, they were sitting
12,
in the lobby
13,
and just
14
banging this thing out until about, I think they sat up till about midnight doing this.
I think Katie and Raina were off somewhere, but so that was probably left about 10 or 12 kids that were working on it together.
Yeah, and I just think it's a beautiful little piece of writing, and I've quoted that many times to people when they talk about, well, why should we Why should we go to all the extra trouble of stepping outside and doing this stuff when it's obviously more difficult? And to me, that just sums it up, because I can't think of a better summary of what you'd want kids to get out of education than what I've just read.
Exactly.
Now, having said all that, let me go back to these notes. With this whole notion then about this world shrinking and barriers coming down and classrooms being more connected, I thought we ought to spend a couple of minutes just talking about what are the things you can do to make that happen. So on a day-to-day practical level, what are strategies and techniques and activities and things you can do in your classroom to bring classrooms together from different parts of the world or different parts of the country? And also, what are the obstacles? What makes it difficult, and what advice can you give to teachers to maybe get over some of those obstacles?
Right.
So I might throw it over to the master, Janet.
Well, idea.
One of the things is to go out there as a teacher yourself, to go out there and find the projects, to find the classrooms.
Yep.
We this year participated with the project in Taiwan. Very difficult for us because of the time differences.
Yep.
Also difficult for us because Taiwan is a Windows-only, very proprietary Windows platform, so that even their server is an old Windows server where you needed to use default instead of index. And you had to use the 8-character naming
File name
structure.
limits, yeah.
So it was very difficult because everything we taught the kids, they had to relearn to be able to upload to their server. But it was also very good for them as they were interacting not in real time, because it just didn't work. Somebody was in their pajamas when everybody else was up.
Yep.
And we are talking basically junior high kids who, yes, like to be up late at night, but their mothers are not thrilled about them being online late at night, talking to whom. So that the real-time talking just didn't happen. So that is one of the difficulties, is time zones and being able to talk real time. However, being able to leave messages and answer messages works very well. Good for both groups of kids, because our kids have to really use their best English skills. The kids in Taiwan have to try and learn correct English to be able to communicate their thoughts. My kids have to understand that if a kid in Taiwan says something that seems out of place or that seems even rude, that it may be that they have misunderstood something that they've heard in English, because as the teacher told me, when the kids in Taiwan learn English, or anybody in Taiwan learns English, their biggest source of learning English is American movies. And I explained that to the kids too, that if somebody says, did you get some today, they may have been watching too much Austin Powers. And they don't really mean that. So it gives my kids a good lesson in the English language itself.
Yep.
And the way our English sometimes is misrepresented. We also do have our own magazine called Cyber Teen. We regularly communicate with a school in Japan who participates in this, and sometimes a school in Russia. And Sharon, you know Milana. She sometimes participates in that, and also sometimes Marsha Gorin in Israel. We also are part of Marsha's Global Dreamers project. So there are projects out there, and for teachers to find. You do have to go looking. You do have to say, how much time can I give to an outside project outside of my regular curriculum? Yep. The virtual classroom is a very intensive project. It needs a lot of time. Yes. It needs a lot of time outside of class, the teacher, and for at least some of the students. Not every student is willing to give extra time above and beyond the school day, but some of them really have to if the project is going to be successful. Global Dreamers is one that you can do as little as writing a message on their bulletin board, or as much as a full-blown project studying the Holocaust or explaining your local holidays or something of that nature. Our cyber team can be as much as again a full-blown website, or it can be as little as writing an article about your feelings or explaining a little bit about some of the things that happen in your country.
Yep.
So it's out there.
Yep.
The big problems are finding them, finding something that fits for you as
right,
and then synchronous or asynchronous communication.
Well, I'm going to just throw something in there and say that certainly when Janet and I were working together on stuff, a lot of it had to be asynchronous because we were simply on other sides of the world, and so the time zone thing. It actually wasn't a problem for Janet and I in terms of planning and preparing and getting ideas together, because I'm a nighttime person, she's a morning person, so it actually worked pretty well. But in terms of connecting the kids, it was quite difficult because they just weren't at school when we were.
I couldn't get my kids to get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, funny about that. But we were working with another school in Japan as part of that little triangle of schools, and we shared quite a few video conferences with them. Obviously, there were English issues, but that's part of it. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Getting kids to deal with those other cultures. And you mentioned before about, kids saying things inappropriately or cultural misunderstandings, and I remember we had quite a few of those because someone would say something and it just, they didn't mean anything by it, but it was the way it was expressed that other people took offence at, and suddenly then you had a little mini flame war going on as people tried to sort out who was insulting who, and it's good that the kids experience that. And, I think that was one of the lines in that little thing I read before that the kids wrote, this idea that communicating your views about other people's ideas even when you don't agree with them.
Exactly.
And to being able to agree to disagree and just to politely deal with someone who doesn't see the world the same way that you do. And what a skill that would be if we had more people in politics and business who thought that way.
Certainly. Boy, what a different world it would be.
Yeah. Now, just in terms of just some simple strategies, have any of you taken part in, say, like a travel buddy type project? We did a project once, and it was actually the first year that I took part in the virtual classroom project. And we were teamed up with a school in Greece. It was 1998, and we were 2 years out, they were 6 years out, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could get a 3-school team going and we could look at the issues and how a school prepares for the Olympic Games. So Nagano was about to host the Winter Games in Japan. So I think I must have spent about an hour just crawling through various databases of schools in Japan until I found a bunch of schools in Nagano, and then just wrote a bunch of emails and expressed what we were trying to do, what we were interested in. And I think out of the 20 or so schools I wrote to, maybe 5 wrote back, and eventually one seemed to be a perfect match, and we did some work together. One of the things we did was the kids here bought the Sydney Olympic Game mascots stuffed toys, and the kids in Japan bought the stuffed toy mascots for the Nagano Winter Games. And what we did was we sent them to each other. So we had these stuffed toys that the kids in the other country received, and then they kept a diary of those stuffed toys while they were in the country. So they took them different places. They took the Sydney mascot toys down to the ice skating arena, for example, and took some digital photos and wrote a little story about the visit to the ice rink. And in doing so, they told us a little bit about the history of the rink and about how they were preparing for the games. Now, this is all pre-Web 2.0. This would be so much easier now with Web 2.0 technologies. To do it as a blog or whatever, that would be so much simpler because it's effectively a diary. So, but that's a nice little simple example of a physical connection,
yes,
which is then backed up by the virtual connection, and
yes,
and to build that relationship between the different schools.
We did do some work with Friends and Flags where I think there were 4 different countries by the time we were finished, wrote about their countries and then sent packages to each other, containing all the materials. To me, that was just so expensive. We were talking like almost $50 a package because they wanted everything on paper, and we ended up making CDs of the information about our country and our school, and ended up putting some movies on and things like that, and then did send some, gifts and presents. But even at that, it was like practically $50 a box to send.
Can get expensive.
Way too expensive to do that type of thing.
Yeah, it isn't cheap. But to send a flag or a
right. That I was just going to say, that was when we ended up with virtual classroom. Much better idea was just the simple things like a flag and a little something.
Yeah.
Instead of these, big boxes of you should have A, B, C, and D, and several things were on paper, and paper weighs a lot of money, or a lot of weight, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were also fortunate when See You, See Me first came out. I kind of battered our IT people to put in a connection. Actually, it was a hole in the firewall. So that I could make a direct connection with a school in Ireland that had been our very first partner in VC. And the teacher that we had partnered with left, but the new teacher that came in said, I can't do virtual classroom. It's really too much work. We only have 6th graders. There's too much in their curriculum that they have to get in. But is there a time that we could maybe just get together a little? So we ended up once a week with kids coming in early to be able to chat with the kids in Ireland, and it was just a variety of topics. They would stay late. For them it was like 2:30 in the afternoon. For us it was 8 o'clock in the morning. And they chatted about very, very many different things. Sometimes they sang to each other. I do remember when the war in Bosnia occurred, the kids in Ireland were very upset about our interference, and here we are with these kids in the U.S. who now have to justify why is it that we're in Bosnia, what was the role of the United States, and isn't that better than reading something in a history book? What is the reason we're there? What's our thinking? And to understand what's their thinking. And of course, both sides are, reflecting the family and neighborhood and country's thinking. But what a better way to understand than to read something in a history book.
Yeah, it's so much more authentic.
Yes.
One of the things that Friedman talks about in his book, and he lists a whole bunch of flattening factors that he thinks has flattened the world, and one of them is what he calls workflow software. And then basically the idea behind that is that now that the web is kind of a few years old, that we've now got some standards emerging, and it's actually much easier now to actually hand files from one person to another in various parts of the world, and for those files to actually be worked on by different computers, different computer systems, different platforms, whatever. So, I can hand a file to you guys and you can open it and read it and add to it and hand it back to me, and I could send you a video file and you could take that file and edit it together with footage that you've taken, because there are now standards that exist.
Right.
I'm just wondering what windows does that open up to people in terms of being able to collaborate?
I know I'm using Google Docs with one of my partners, well, two of my partners actually, and that is that's been new, and I think that's a good way to share docs. And they're very versatile because you can take your Google Doc and you can convert it into a number of different documents styles afterwards: PDF, DOCs, OpenOffice, as well as a web page, and then you can publish it online. And spreadsheets too. I've used that a little bit. I think that's one way that we can start moving. Wikis, too, have been my new discovery this year, and what I really love about wikis is the discussion tab on them. Yes. The history tab and the discussion tab really permits true communication about content that we would have maybe had to open multiple files or if here, proofread this document and then get back to me in the bulletin board or with an email. But now with the wiki, it's all right there in the same contained sort of package.
Yeah. There's no doubt that the whole Web 2.0 notion, that the read-write web and the ability to interact directly with a web page with nothing more than a browser has just totally turbocharged all of this?
One thing I wanted to add about if you want to engage in these kind of projects, I'm fortunate enough I'm in a wireless network situation, and some of my kids do have laptops, their own laptops to work with, but putting that aside, I still have to work very closely with my IT director and the technicians in order for them to open things like firewalls or to troubleshoot and get things to work for me in an optimum fashion. So I'd say keeping good relationships with your
IT people, yes.
IT administration is really key.
whose one goal in life is to lock everything down.
And I'm getting them to open up. I have my IT director's really come around, and I just I have to take my hat off to him because he's really opened a lot of doors for me and has been one of my biggest cheerleaders in the things that I'm doing right now.
Good.
And that's a relationship I really treasure and want to foster because it can. I know you two both are in the position where you're sort of already you are the IT guy, but not all of us are so fortunate. So that relationship I think is really important, as well as keeping tabs with my department head and the academics people at my school, and just reassuring them that I really am trying to meet our standards and our goals that we've set out for our curriculum. So I think you have to factor those things into any kind of project you're going to do.
Yeah.
So absolutely, yes.
Yep.
And there are some good portals out there that offer up those exchanges that you were talking about, and I think that more people are becoming aware of them and maybe adding to them, as you can search for that perfect project that suits your length and interest and curriculum. And you certainly people can create their own and put them on the portals.
Well,
make them available.
when we finish this, I might get you guys, if you've got any of those, just to drop me an email and I can put them in the show notes on the blog for this podcast.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
You can look those up.
I've also been fascinated with the explosion of what I would call social networking amongst teachers in the last, let's say 6 months to a year. And again, Web 2.0 really fosters that, permits that. And I mean, I've met all kinds of new people on the horizon who are really new to this kind of idea of exchanges, and I'm excited because they're coming on board and they're creating their own partnerships as they're finding other people within these social networking establishments or networks that have set themselves up. So good things are happening quickly.
Yeah.
There's a galvanizing force, almost a critical mass, I think I can see starting to occur. I find it fascinating. I think it's a very interesting social phenomenon.
Okay, well, I have a couple of little, real simple suggestions on making your classroom more flat. And I might ask you guys to throw in whatever tips you might have too. My first real simple suggestion is to put some clocks on the wall. Just get a bunch of 4 or 5 or 6 clocks and put them up on the back wall and display the time zones in different parts of the world or in your partner schools, so that at least the kids get this idea that the world is not just where they're at.
In connection with that, if you have Macs, go to the dashboard and pick some selected cities around the world and pull up the clocks. My kids were so amazed by, it's that time there?
And it's not in people's psyche to think about that sort of stuff. And even now, I mean, having lived in Canada for 12 months now and having my family having gone back to Australia the other day, and people say to me, what's Donna and the kids doing now? And I'm going, well, they're probably sleeping right now. Oh, that's right, it's night time there. Or, what's the weather like in Australia? Oh, pretty hot. Hot, but it's Christmas. Yeah, but it's summer there. And people just, it's not ignorance, it's just that you don't think about it. You just don't become aware of what's going on in other parts of the world unless you're really sort of tuned into that.
Wherever you are, that's the center of the world.
Correct.
And it's normal to think that way. So you need to break that down. So,
anyone else got any other interesting thoughts about how we can make our classrooms flatter?
One of the things that I do, and probably, and pushed way too much. Sometimes I'm pushy, right, Sharon? Is I insist at the beginning of the year that my kids do a really nice about themselves, so that when we find partners throughout the world, they send these out well, actually we put it online so that people can print it out, so that other people have a little bit about each one of the kids in my classroom.
Yep.
We embed this in multiple strangely named directories, and for the most part, parents are not upset about that. They say, oh, okay, as long as it's not up forever. Because it is a lot of relatively personal information. It doesn't give their last name, it doesn't give where they live, but it does give relatively personal information. But that's a very good thing for others to have. And then I try to get my partners to do the same thing. We print that out and have them again on the bulletin board, which is not only for my kids, but because I'm in the lab, which is used by other students throughout the day, other kids are also exposed to this. And you'd be amazed how many kids will come in later and say, I was reading about this kid in Japan, and did you know? And they'll tell you something that they saw there.
And it looks fantastic. I still remember the back wall of my classroom covered in about 60 profiles with a photo and a little write-up next to each kid's photo of who they are and what they do and what they like, and it covered the whole back wall.
Right.
And I had teachers dropping by and kids in other classes dropping by just to read these profiles. It was very compelling.
Exactly.
My problem is that I don't have a dedicated classroom. I have to share space, but I do have a very large bulletin board that's waiting for that, Janet, for me when I get back to, and it's right in the middle school lounge, which is being used as my classroom for that particular class this year. So it gets a lot of traffic. It's going to be very visible.
Great.
So I'm excited about that. I want to do the clocks thing, but I think what I need to do is buy a clock that has like a sticky back on it, because I don't think we can actually physically put an electrical clock anywhere or add it to the room, but there must be those sticky
I just bought
clocks.
some of those little cheap battery operated ones.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll do
expensive.
something like that.
But Janet,
What a great idea.
one of the things, Janet, that you do that I really learned a lot from was the whole physicality of this whole stuff, because I tend to think digitally, and if it were me, I'd do the profile things and I'd put them on a web page, and I tend to think like that. But
we do. But in addition,
I know you do. But what you also do is get the kids to physicalize that by printing it out and sticking it on the back wall, or getting a flag and sticking it on, putting it in an envelope and sending it to the other school, so they've got something physical to hang on to. And I think that's a really nice thing to do, to just tie these projects together.
Right, and this is from the person who sits there and doesn't let teachers print things out and tells them to go home and do it on their own printer if they have to have a printout. I do think sometimes, I don't believe in printing a lot, but I do think sometimes it's important to have that physical thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really nice.
Google Earth is a powerful, I don't know if you have Google Earth, and I'm lucky enough to have smartboards in my classroom too, so I can use the Google Earth on a smartboard, and literally you have the whole world in your hands and can make it spin and all that kind of fun stuff with it. But that has been one way to bring home the location, of who you're partnering with, and that's been a lot of fun to use Google Earth to share that. And I do that during open house too. I have I show the parents and the students coming around, if they're looking for new schools for the following year, and I just show them, these are some of the people I've worked with in the past few years, and it's quite a powerful visual.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we did this year. We have now all 3 schools, and I've got it in a folder where the kids can access it on the network, and they can, go anytime they want and see where's this one in Arizona again, and where in Canada is our partner.
This thing you keep hearing about outsourcing in India and how India works while America sleeps, and vice versa. Well, with these projects, you can get the same sort of effect happening, where the kids will work on something during the day, and they'll leave school and go home and sleep, and they come back the next morning, and suddenly there's more stuff there because the kids on the other side of the world have done something while they were awake.
Exactly.
And it's very exciting.
Yeah, the classroom that never sleeps.
Yep.
Now, that's a good way of putting it.
I think I found a catchphrase for this podcast.
Classroom that never sleeps. I'm not sure how enticing it's going to be, but they're going to be thinking it's about ADHD or something like that.
But the teachers do.
The teachers do, that's right.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I thank you both for your input. I think we've talked about some very interesting forces that are going on in classrooms.
Yes.
Is there anything?
Thank you, Chris.
Anything you'd like to add before we finish up?
I think one of the best tools in the world is what we're using right now, Skype.
Yes, it's amazing.
It has such power to bring people together.
Yep.
Even though we talked before about the difficulty of synchronous communication, this makes communication so much easier. Sometimes you can get kids to show up in their pajamas to be able to do this type of thing, to actually be able to talk to each other.
I think,
sorry, Sharon, go on.
Well, just a caveat to that there are some dangers to Skype, and I think that almost would rank a whole other podcast sometime, Chris, talking about the pitfalls as well as the virtues of Skype, because there are some dangers, I think, associated with having every kid using Skype in the classroom. We just have to be aware.
Oh, I wouldn't have them have their own personal accounts.
Exactly. And we don't want to mislead people that's what we're promoting here, but that Skype between teachers and Skype in a guided, controlled way in the classroom is terrific, and it's a terrific flattener. And I think it is one of the most powerful and stable tools that I've seen that seems to be used quite globally right now. I think there are a few pockets I have some concerns about that are not accessible to Skype because of the digital divide or whatever. But yes, it's becoming a ubiquitous global tool.
Yeah, and it's becoming my new standard. I used to be an MSN fan, but of course, once you move off Windows and onto a Mac, then they decide they're not going to include video and audio in the Mac version. So that, to me, it's not a cross-platform tool anymore.
Right.
You've got iChat on the Mac, which is a great little piece of software, but it doesn't work on Windows. So again, it's not a cross-platform tool. To me, Skype is really the one tool which is cross-platform. It works for everybody. It's effective. It's good quality. I love the fact that you can record stuff. I had some kids here in Canada doing some work where for a project they had to actually interview people, and we talk about working on the other side of the world and talking to someone halfway around the globe. These kids were simply just wanting to speak to, say, their local bank manager or someone who worked for a local company, and then to include that information in a podcast they were working on. What other tool can you use where they can do that from inside a classroom? They can record it. I mean, if there's a better tool out there, tell me what it is, but I haven't found it.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, me too. I really moved to Skype. When they cut off my Skype, I don't know, inadvertently at school for a few weeks, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I kept sending messages to my IT director. I'm still Skypeless.
Well, that's one we're still in negotiation over. If I want to use it at school, I have to bring in my laptop.
And it's cheap, and you can dial out to real phone numbers.
Right.
Yeah. That's the other powerful thing. This idea of dialing real phone numbers.
It saved my life when I was in San Diego at the NEC conference because my cell phone died. Just wouldn't work in that system, and I had 2 daughters staying home alone that week. I had to be in contact with them.
and horrors of calling off the telephone line in the hotel room.
Oh yeah, no, there's no way. That's right. So it really did save my life that week. Boy.
Well, I'm going to finish up on that note, Janet and Sharon, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Going to go and edit this all together, get it up early in the new year. Yeah. But thanks.
And we're running on, this is 13 minutes and 37 seconds, so I'm going to go off pretty soon.
That's right. And for those people still listening, Janet's been regularly dropping in and out, but this has been skillfully edited together so you wouldn't know.
Terrific.
All right, guys. We'll catch you later.
Thank you so much.
Skill. Thank you, Chris.
Bye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope the message you take away from all of that is that the boundaries towards doing an international collaborative project are far more organisational than they are technical. The technical boundaries towards sharing files and towards communicating and towards having the tools to do one of these projects, the tools are there. Whether you, as a teacher, can make one of these things work in your classroom pretty much comes down to organisational matters. Can you fit it into the timetable? Can you meet the curriculum outcomes? That type of thing. But look, if you've never done one, I would really encourage you to give one a go. I've found it when I was doing these things truly a perspective changing experience, both for myself and also for the kids. So there's some great tips in that podcast if you want to go back and listen to it, or just check out the links in the show notes. There really are some great ideas in there for working across boundaries that have basically vanished over the last couple of years. When I started these virtual staff room podcasts, the idea was meant to be very grassroots. What I'm interested in doing is talking to teachers who are actually out there in classrooms, who are doing interesting things with technology with their kids, and talk to those teachers on a really grassroots level about what they're doing. So, if you've got ideas or suggestions or comments about what you'd like to hear or what you'd like to contribute to these podcasts, I'd really love to hear from you, and maybe we can set up a time to have a chat. If you'd like to contact us, you can always get us on www.virtualstaffroom.net, or I've got a Sydney dial-in number you can call in on. That's 02 8011 4244, and you can call in, leave a message on the voicemail. I'd love to play it on air and hear from you that way. Well, that's about it for this week. Until next time, my name is Chris Betcher, and you've been listening to the Virtual Staff Room.